is you don't have in the top teams much Irish players. Just a quick word on that with the Irish players who played in the top 5, 6, 7 clubs back in the 80s.
Yeah, Paul, it's unfortunately before my time in the early 80s, and particularly when Jack Charlton took over, he really made use of that squad that he had. You're right. A lot of those players, as you see yourself, they're just Manchester United squad. Paul McGuire, Kevin Moore, and Frank Stapleton, of course, as you said, Ronnie Whelan, Mark Lawrence, and that's Liverpool. Then there was a few at Spurs, Chris Hughton
David
as well.
O'Leary in Arsenal,
David Leary
and
at
Liam
Arsenal,
Brady
yeah.
was a side in Italy, etc. So I talk with.
Yeah. So the crop of players was much, much better, and I suppose it was much. I'm not saying it was easier to get over to England and play because there obviously was competition with Scotland and Wales and their own English players as well. Let's not forget. But you didn't have the threat of the outside players, as much. Because nowadays, Paul, the best can go to England now, and of course, what's happening now in the last couple of years is that Irish players can't really go over till they're 18 because of Brexit. I think the English clubs can't sign them till they're 18 or something like that. That's why you have a lot of young Irish players gone on abroad to Italy. A few have done that and they've come back. For example, Troy Parrott has gone to Holland. Of course, he grew up through the system at Tottenham, but he didn't really get a chance. So he went on loan a couple of times. Now he's gone out to the Dutch leagues, and yeah, it's something I suppose, Paul, that's going to continue, Paul, because England have a very good crop of young players themselves coming through. They've won the European Championships, of course, with Lee Carsley. They were in the senior squad, has been in the last 2 European finals. So England are producing a very high caliber of young players themselves. And if it's between a young Irish player and an English player, they're obviously going to pick the English player because of their own best interests, and that's fair enough. Like, we've relied too much on England to develop our players, particularly our young players, for too long now. We need to start developing our own players. But the sad thing is, Paul, a lot of those players, Paul, might have played in the League of Ireland. Like I think Liam Brady came through St. Kevin's boys. I think Ronnie Whelan was through Home Farm, all schoolboy football.
And of course, Kevin Morgan came from the Dublin football team, even though he played with junior soccer.
That's right. And so a lot of them mightn't have played in the league, but now Roy Keane, to be fair, did play a one season.
Sorry, no, I'm going to crush you. Paul McGrath, I think, played with St. Patrick's Athletic, in fairness.
Yeah, he might. But a lot of them, though, Paul, did skip the League of Ireland if you get at a young age. They were over 16, 17, even Johnny Giles.
15.
15, yeah. So a lot of them saw England as the destination. Now, look, a few players from the League of Ireland did go over to England and did have successful careers. Like recently, Shane Long, James McLean. Shane Long, I think, played with Cork City, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
James McLean played with Derry City. So there have been players that have gone over, but they haven't had to stay in the League of Ireland for too long. And the trouble is now, Paul, is that when you look at the League of Ireland, their own development of players, you saw it yourself there a couple of weeks ago at Dundalk, a team that were in the Europa League group stages a couple of years ago, in financial trouble. The grounds aren't at the best in the League of Ireland football. There's always to be a battle between the League of Ireland and the FAI, and the FAI aren't getting their house in order either. So the development of young players nowadays, Paul, is in the hands of the FAI, and the FAI are in a rag order, as we know, as an association. So,
great point, Noel. I just want to talk about maybe a slightly different angle. At that time in the 80s, we're saying the top 6 clubs. So at the start of the season, you had 5 or 6 clubs, and it's the same now, who have a realistic chance of winning something. It doesn't mean they will, but they have a mentality. So being players who play with Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea, Spurs, you had Chris Hughton and Tony Galvin at Spurs, for example.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, they had this mentality that they were in contention to win. Whether they won or not was irrelevant, but they were there and thereabouts, maybe the leagues, the cups, maybe competing in Europe. So when they brought it to Ireland, they had this mentality. But the modern players who are playing in the Premiership, they're down at the bottom clubs. So you have like Doherty at Wolves. Wolves know they're not going to win anything this year. Their only objective is to maintain their status. And the players at Ipswich, they have only one objective this year, to finish 17th, the Irish players themselves. So when they come onto the Irish team, they don't have that mentality of how to win. And we saw it against Greece there recently. Forget about the game against England, but against Greece, the game was nil-nil, not too bad. But as soon as Greece got the first goal, they fell apart. And the same happened last season in the last qualifying campaign. As soon as you concede a goal, they just fall apart. And my theory is, and I love your thoughts on it, it's because it comes from They're not playing with clubs who are competing to win trophies in England in the top 6 or 7, and they're not compete good success in European club matches. So they don't have that winning mentality. And when soon as they face a bit of trouble or go goal down, they just seem to fall apart. Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Paul, I suppose you could say that our Irish players are getting used to losing, sadly, with their clubs and their international team. You're right. A lot of our players now, Paul, are playing for the teams that are below, near the bottom of the league. Everton, for example, they have Seamus Coleman and Jacob Bryan. Jacob Bryan really hasn't got much of a look in now since he's gone there. He came from Leon. Doherty, as you said yourself, he was very poor in the game against Greece, particularly the second goal. But he came on as a sub, but Wolves are down at the bottom of the table. They've only got 1 point. Ipswich Town, they've had a great couple of seasons, Paul, getting up from League One to the Championship and now up to the Premier League. But as you said yourself, their main goal this year, Paul, is to get 17th. If they get higher, even better. But their main goal this year, as a Championship team from last year, getting up to the Premier League, their main goal is to stay in the Premier League and avoid relegation. So, unfortunately, most of these players, Paul, are losing more games than they're winning, and that's just a fact. That's because we're the clubs they're playing for. They're not in the highest of confidence. I mean, if they win 10 games this season in the league, they'll be doing well. So look, it's sort of a sad reality of Irish football at the moment, Paul. Scotland will probably do a little bit better because of the squads they have, and they have their own professional league. Let's not forget as well. That's at least some sort of a standard, because it always goes back to your league and your country, Paul, how you're developing players. And unfortunately, we're not developing as players as good as we can, as well as we can either, because of our facilities. But get back to Daisies, yeah.
Is it in time maybe the supporters to stop blaming the manager so much? Yes, a manager obviously, of course, has an impact, and he can do things right in this a number of things he can improve on. Of course he has. But basically the raw material of the Irish players, the current manager, John O'Shea, the temporary manager, Stephen Kinney before that, even Mick McCarthy, his second term before that. That's the basic standards. Your level 1 standard of players is so low now. They're not playing with the top clubs. They don't have a winning mentality, and it's very hard to change that when they come in from the clubs across England who are, as you said, rightly said, losing most of the games during the year to bring them together at an international level. And maybe the supporters and the pundits, but the supporters in particular, will have to understand that. Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Paul, we have to be realistic too. We've already qualified for 3 World Cups, 200 Jack Charlton, 100 Mick McCarthy. It's been 22 years, 2002, since we got to a World Cup. And by the looks of it, Paul, you know, it'd be very optimistic to say we're going to qualify for the USA in 2026. We've already qualified for 3 European Championships as well. And if you look through the squad, it's been declining. You know, you look through Euro 2012, the most of our players were playing the Premier League. Might have been 1 or 2 Championship players. 2016 as well. Even going back to the World Cup 2002. I think that's at the time we played our best football, actually, under Mick McCarthy. You know, the style of play with Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy as manager, of course. And we had players, you know, Robbie Keane and Harper playing for Leeds United maybe at the time. David Duff was playing for Blackburn Rovers, but he was going to be bought by Chelsea, who himself won 2 Premier League titles under Mourinho. So, yeah, there's been a steady decline. If you look through the squads, even through the major competitions we qualified for, 2016, and then we haven't qualified for our tournament since. It's coming up 10 years now since we last qualified for the tournament. We do get to the World Cup in 2026. So you're right that the caliber of player has gone down in the last, you could say, nearly even 10 years. We just don't have the players anymore. And the players we do have, Paul, only 1 or 2 of them are playing in Europe. Liam Scales and Adam Eager are both playing for Celtic. There was actually stat ball that actually might hit at home. When Liam Scales scored a Champions League goal against, I think it's Slava in the Champions League first round there a couple of weeks ago, he is the first Irish player to score a Champions League goal since Darren Gibson at Man United. That was 13 or 14 years ago. So even at Celtic, who qualified for the Champions League, not all the time, but because of the coefficient of Scotland now, Celtic don't have to qualify anymore. They go straight into the group stages, straight into the league it is now. If they win the Scottish League, that sort of stats sort of hit home how even at Celtic they're not getting much of a games either. You know, Eddie McGeady was probably the most high profile Irish international player for Celtic, and they would have had 1 or 2 others, but we've had nothing to write home about either, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, the standard. If you look through to all the clubs that the players played for in the time we qualified for tournaments, is steady declining over the last 22 years, and now there's not one Irish player that will get near the top 6 team in the Premier League. Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, even Man United, how bad now they are.
Sorry, Noel, the Liverpool sub-goalie, Kelleher, he can't get a game. He's the number 2 choice, and he either stays there or he transfers to another club. And the odds are if he transfers, he won't go to Man City or Arsenal or I can't even get if he transfers from Liverpool.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, Paul. That's a fair point actually for about Kelleher. But the reason why people might forget about it because he's the number 2 keeper. He's a very good goalkeeper, but he's only going to get games when Alisson is injured in the league. He might get cup games. He might get, like, if Liverpool did well in the Champions League and were guaranteed the top 8 with a game to go or 2 games to go, he might get some action there. But he's number 2, and you know he's not going to dislodge Alisson anytime soon because he also has competition next year. If he does stay, Liverpool are after buying another goalkeeper from. He's a Georgian international. So even at that, he's not guaranteed if Alisson goes. He's going to be the number 1 next season if Alisson does decide to go. So yeah, look, it's we have what we have, Paul. You know, it's international football. You get what you're given basically. I think Heimer Hilgrimson was saying he might look more into the granny rule. I think that's something that has to be explored. We should make no apologies for it. Jack Jartlett didn't. And other managers are doing it across the world in terms of their squads. So, but you have to sell it to a player as well. You know, this is a team that's playing poorly, haven't qualified for a tournament since 2016. You know, the last 3 campaigns have been disastrous. With 200, the Euros.
Noel, can I come in there? Sorry for cutting across you. You said they're disastrous, Noel. I disagree with you. We are at the standard, and you said it yourself before. That's our standard now. They're not disastrous. Yeah. They're only disastrous that people think that we should be qualifying and we have top quality players. We don't have them. They're not in the top teams. As you say, they have a losing mentality. Every one of the Irish players who come into the Irish team who are playing the Premiership now, they're losing 2 out of every 3 games they play. Do you know what I mean with that? So it wasn't disastrous. No, I think the supporters and probably more important, these ex-players, the pundits as we call them, who are on doing the commentary, whether on television or on podcasts or on radio or writing articles in the newspapers, ex-players, ex-managers, they have to put this fact forward. It wasn't disastrous. It's because this is the quality we have. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I accept that it's the quality we have, and I agree with the majority of what you said. But I do believe, Paul, we can do a little bit better. Stay in the group, like not be out of the running after 2 games. I mean, hang in there. You know what I mean? You know that was always a given at Irish teams. You know, you'd be difficult to beat. You could be red raw useless, but you just give 100% and make it hard for the opposition. We've been too easy to play against, Paul, and we need to like. Even under McCarthy in the last campaign he had, we went into the last group match where if we beat Denmark, I know it was a 1-1 draw, but if we beat them, we would have qualified for the Euro straight through. So it wasn't that long ago we had a chance of actually qualifying for a tournament. But you're right, it's the standard has gone down and off in the last couple of years. You know, when Stephen Kenny took over, he inherited nothing really. You know, there was the gap between a young player and the older players was getting wider and wider. You had to bring in a load of young players. And that takes time, and of course there was a lot of inexperience in the squad. But I actually think that, like we've been saying there a couple of times. Well, I said the men have been for most from Stephen Kenny's work, and the men after, because he at least has a squad now. He at least has, the gap between older players and younger players is.
But no, have the mentality, have the winning mentality, and it's my theory that they don't have it. And as we saw the last game against Greece was a perfect example. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's the perfect example. Greece are changing their team as well. The game was roughly 50-50, not much in it, but as soon as Greece got the goal, you could see the Irish players the mentality just collapsed, the confidence drained out of them. He went down and faster than a running tap, and they were just, and that becomes, they have a losing mentality.
Yeah, well, I think